The room was glass and oak and cold money. You could smell the expense before you felt it. The kind of air conditioning that hums at the edge of your hearing, tuned to the comfort level of people who have assistants. It was the quarterly board dinner. Waterfront restaurant, the one with the polished floors and the servers who hover just long enough to make you feel self-conscious. My wife raised her glass and smiled at the man beside her. Her boss, the golden man, the kind who smiles like he's been photographed doing it before. "Let's toast to the real builder of this company," she said, laughter spilling just a touch too loudly. "My boss built this empire, not my husband." The table went still. Even the waiter froze, his hand hovering with a tray of scallops. Someone coughed. Someone else forced a laugh that died halfway. I smiled, just a small one. "Of course," I said, calm as a coma. "Wouldn't want to take credit for anyone else's empire." She didn't look at me. She was too busy laughing at something he whispered. Her fingers slipped between his under the tablecloth, thinking no one saw. They all saw. $15 million in valuation, 2 patents pending, and I was suddenly background noise at my own table. The burden. I stood up. Quiet chair legs against hardwood, a sound sharper than any argument. "Enjoy the empire," I said, and left my untouched steak bleeding in the center of the plate. Outside, the harbor air was cold enough to taste metal. I walked along the railing, the reflections of city lights breaking on the water like glass. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Her text. "You embarrassed me." I didn't answer. I just typed one message to someone else. "Pull last 90 days of access logs, quietly." The mill was silent when I got there. Our startup headquarters used to be a textile factory before it became a mausoleum for ambition. The fluorescents hummed like nervous insects. I unlocked my office, sat down, and stared at the dual monitors glowing with spreadsheets and server stats. The hum of the HVAC became a pulse. The door opened. Claire stepped in. Ops lead, night owl, loyal out of habit more than affection. "You texted." "I need logs," I said. "Door badges, elevator entries, everything." She squinted. "You looking for something specific?" "Patterns," I said. "Any pattern that shouldn't be there." She leaned against the door frame. "You think she's stealing data or sleeping with him?" "Maybe both," I said. Claire nodded once. "I'll pull them by morning." "You didn't hear it from me." I looked up at her. I didn't hear anything. She left. By midnight, the city fog rolled in off the water, curling under the door like smoke. I sat watching old Slack messages on my phone. Her emojis, hearts, flames. Then the late-night ones to him, hidden under her strategy sync folder. It was almost comical, how predictable betrayal is when you look at it through timestamps. 2:11 a.m., you still up? 2:12 a.m. Thinking of that hotel lobby kiss. I stared until the letters blurred. I opened the shared calendar we used for board prep. Her recurring vendor coordination sessions all lined up with his client briefings. Different buildings, same time slots. I wasn't angry, not yet. Anger is loud. What I felt was silent math. At 2:30, the access logs pinged in from Claire. Spreadsheet rows, thousands of them. Badges, times, doors. I sorted by her name. Twice a week, after midnight, she'd badged out through the freight elevator, not the front. Out at 12:42 a.m., in again at 5:08. There was only one reason to use that elevator at night. It opened straight onto the rear alley where Harbor Glass's valet drop-off started. I leaned back, cracked my knuckles, and started cross-referencing timestamps with the valet app I'd used once when our companies partnered. Public check-ins, perfect overlap, the same nights, the same windows. Her and him. Around 3, I drove out. No plan, just motion. The parking structure at Harbor Glass was mostly empty. My headlights swept across concrete columns marked with flaking paint. Her car wasn't there, but his was. A matte black coupe, vanity plate, perfect metaphor for midlife crisis. At 3:14, the elevator opened. She stepped out first, heels sharp on concrete, then him. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and kissed her once before she got into her car. I lifted my phone. The reflection in the glass doors caught the scene like a ghosted photograph. Only a silhouette, but the shape of his watch face was unmistakable. That custom steel band he never shut up about. Click. One photo. Proof, but not yet power. I stayed there long after the engines faded, my fingers drumming the steering wheel, brain spinning through logistics. That was the night I started finding out. By dawn, the mill was waking up. Coffee smell, tired interns, the shuffle of keyboards. I sat in the corner office and watched my wife glide in, wearing her neutral gray armor. She didn't look at me, didn't even blink. "Morning," I said. She typed something into her laptop. Morning? I wondered how long she'd been practicing that tone, the one that made normal words sound like barbed wire. She had no idea the walls were already whispering. Claire passed by my door and left a flash drive on my desk. Everything you asked for, she said softly. You sure you want to go through with this? Yes. What's your endgame? Justice, I said. The kind that doesn't come with handcuffs. She studied me. You're smiling. I know. That night, I wrote down one sentence on the whiteboard behind my desk. That's the secret of revenge. You don't destroy people. You let them destroy themselves. All you do is light the hallway. The next morning, the rumors started. A post on a local startup gossip newsletter. Which waterfront queen is moonlighting as a CEO of Hearts? A photo attachment. Blurred reflection in a lobby door. A man's wristwatch. My watch. I sat at my desk, reading it, smiling slightly. Not bad for day one. Across the hall, she slammed her door shut. I didn't look up. That evening, the lover called me. Unknown number, but his voice was all silk and teeth. Whatever you think you're doing, he said, don't. Doing? I said. I'm just going about my day. You're going to regret this. I laughed quietly. You already do. He hung up. The city lights flickered on outside the window. I sat in the dark office, the whiteboard glowing faintly from the streetlights below, the words still clear. That was the plan, and it was working. I just didn't know yet how far it would take me. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The next morning, Claire left the flash drive on my desk like a slow confession. She moved through the office like someone carrying a tray of hot plates. Steady hands, polite face, eyes that missed nothing. I plugged the drive into my laptop and watched a tidy parade of CSVs and server logs populate the screen. Door badges, elevator calls, VPN sessions, the digital detritus of a company that didn't trust anyone it didn't pay. You're really doing this, she said, watching me pull columns and sort by time. Someone has to, I said. And if it's not me, it's going to be the rumor mill and a lawyer with better lighting. She sniffed. You sure you want to build a case? Not a war? Both, I said. Quiet war. She slid a cup of coffee across the desk like a peace offering. The coffee tasted of burnt ambition and cheaper beans. I drank it anyway. We worked in silence that morning, except for the rhythmic clack of keyboards and the occasional beep when someone merged code and hoped nobody noticed. Claire pulled up a map of our badge reader network, where each reader sat, its ID, the last firmware update, the odd gaps where maintenance logs read NA. Freight elevator anomalies, she said, pointing to a cluster of timestamps. She's using the freight elevator mostly between midnight and 5 a.m. Why would she do that unless she wants to avoid the front desk camera, I finished. Exactly. She wouldn't badge out of the freight elevator unless she had access there, Claire said. Which is weird. It's authorized only for maintenance and vendor loads. Give me the entries where she badged out and then back in within an hour, I said. Cross it with valet timestamps at Harbor Glass. She tapped a few keys, then frowned. Harbor Glass is off our servers. But I can pull a cached version of the valet app from last year when we did the partnership integration. It might have check-ins. Do it, I said. She worked fast. The fluorescent light over her head made her hair glow like a halo and made me feel performatively calm. We matched timestamps, rounded to the nearest minute. It was tedious, like cartography for betrayal. Twice a week she would badge out using the freight elevator at 12:42 a.m. and badge back in at 5:08 a.m. The valet logs at Harbor Glass showed a matching arrival at 12:46 a.m. and a departure at 5:05 a.m. The math was close enough to be guilt without being a smoking gun. Is this enough to get her in trouble? Claire asked. It depends what you call trouble, I said. This is evidence of logistics. It's proof of behavior. People fear what looks like pattern more than what looks like accident. She looked at me. Are you trying to get her fired? No, I said. I'm trying to make everyone believe she already is being fired, in every way that matters. She made a small face. You know how this reads. Personal vendetta, CEO sleep-deprived, coming unhinged. Have you thought about the optics? That's why it's quiet, I said. We don't do a press release. We build a narrative that collapses inward like a bad bridge. We give them enough to doubt, and then let doubt do the demolition. Claire tapped a key, and the screen filled with overlapping lines. Door badges and valet times and his company's client visits calendar entries. They all sat like tombstones on a street. There's more, she said. Look at this. She pointed to a pattern in the version history of the board decks. Slides he presented at their last investor day. Look at the metadata. Someone from his firm's analytics created a duplicate of our deck 2 weeks before their meeting. And these screenshots, these are from your Loom demo last quarter. I leaned in. The metadata didn't lie. The deck had my name in the revision history, me in the one place where I'd never shared that version. It had been pulled from a project folder I'd archived off idea drafts. Someone had lifted content and repackaged it as forward-looking strategy, without attribution. The kind of thing that looks at a board meeting like the work of the person who's in charge. That's not illegal, I said out loud, more to myself than to Claire. It's theft of credit. Reputation theft. It's also convenient, she said. If they're trying to narrativize you as the old tech guy, the one who built the platform but can't scale it, then they need slides that look like they came from your hand but with different framing. They need to make public what we've kept private, control the storylines. I closed my eyes for a second and tried to imagine the boardroom with that deck. I pictured her voice over the slides, the way she'd tilt her head at the right moment and smile through a sentence that suggested humility while carving dominance. I pictured him in the audience, hands folded like a man modest about his own empire. "What do you want me to do?" Claire asked. "Everything on the drive gets logged," I said. "We back it up to the secure server, then we make a clean copy to hand the board. The CFO should see it before anyone else. Make sure there's a checksum trail. I don't want it to look like I pulled it out of my hat." She nodded. "I can get you an affidavit for chain of custody if you want to involve counsel." "Not yet," I said. "For now, papers and timestamps. Witnesses who can say, 'I saw her leave at this time.' Neutral people. Valet, cleaning staff. Not friends, not enemies. The neutral ones are the sharpest." She left to do the rounds. I sat alone at my desk, fingers steepled, considering timelines like an architect. You learn to see narratives as scaffolding. You remove a plank here, a beam there, and the whole structure creaks. The day drifted into evening without ceremony. Our office emptied one cube at a time. People went home to small apartments, to lovers, to pets, to second jobs. Myself, I sharpened my plan into smaller tasks. Identify, correlate, neutralize. I wrote down the names of the neutral witnesses Claire had mentioned. Jorge, valet manager at Harbor Glass. Sal, the overnight cleaner at the mill. Priya, who managed the couriers at our colo. Neutral, but reliable when asked the right questions. I called Jorge first. He answered on the second ring. Sound of someone talking quietly in the background. "You Jorge? This is Evan." I almost said my name, then stopped. I wasn't sure how many of my words I wanted in his memory. "Former partner. We met during the integration last year." "Yeah," Jorge said. "Valet. What can I do for you, Mr. Evan?" "Have you seen a black coupe, matte finish? Park here overnight sometimes?" "Sure," he said. "Every day. He leaves it at the night valet sometimes, yes." "Any chance you have logs? Paper receipts? Anything?" "Paper receipt, yes," he said. "We have timestamps. I can check. Might have to pull the box from the old ledger." "Can you text me a photo of the receipt for the last 3 weeks? No names, just times." "Sure," he said. "I can do that." Small things. Small tiles placed in a mosaic. That night I drove to Harbor Glass again. There was a particular pleasure in a small, patient deception. I looped the block, parked 2 levels down where the cameras were sparse, and waited like a man observing his prey. My hands were steady on the wheel. My breath tasted of the coffee I'd brought with me earlier. At 2:58 a.m., the freight elevator opened and her silhouette stepped out. He appeared behind her like a shadow that was too smooth for accuracy. They moved together without speaking. I kept my car hidden in a column of darkness and watched the reflection on the glass lobby. I pressed my phone to the window and tried to compose a shot that would be clear enough for someone to recognize the cut of his cuff, the exact dent in his watchband, the way she tucked her chin against his shoulder. I managed a photo of their reflection. It was grainy, the way all revenge photos are grainy until you make people pay to sharpen them. But in the reflection, you could see a shape that was definitely a watch face and a cufflink flash that was too specific to be anonymous. They paused near the concierge desk. He kissed her. It was brief, 3 seconds, one of those small thefts that say, "This is ours." I moved. That was my mistake. A woman pushing a cart of clean linens rounded the corner. She collided with me, sending a cascade of white sheets across the floor like paper snow. The crash caused a small series of noises, murmurs, a dropped tray, the concierge calling out. He and she broke apart like 2 people who'd been holding a secret and been caught with their hands in the same cookie jar. He looked up. Not at me, at movement. My phone slipped in my palm. I pressed the shutter in reflex. The photo I took in the chaos wasn't of the kiss, but of the way he gripped the woman's shoulder afterward, his jaw tight. It was more human than the lobby reflection photo I'd taken from outside. There was a look in his eye I hadn't seen before, one with corners sharpened by fear. A train screamed past outside the building, magnified through the glass into a long metal cry. The noise made the lobby lights flare. In the panic, she moved for the back exit, and he followed without the casual arrogance he'd shown before. Their footsteps became a staccato beat, shoes on tile, a rhythm I recognized. I ducked behind a column and tried to make myself as small as the space allowed. The building's security camera tilted just enough that my dark shape was swallowed. A janitor started to sweep where the linen scattered. Someone joked about ghosts. No one asked why a man was crouched under a lobby overhang in a cheap hoodie. I stayed until they left. I waited until the valet's last exhale. I didn't move until the lights of the mat coupe disappeared down the ramp and the taxi that carried her pulled away. I sat in the car and let the engine tick as it cooled. The night smelled of damp asphalt and fried oil from a 24-hour diner. My phone buzzed. Claire. "Any luck?" she asked. "A picture," I typed. "Grainy, but there's a cufflink, and he looks like someone who just swallowed a lemon." "Send it," she replied. I attached both photos, the reflection and the lobby chaos. She responded with a single word I liked. "Good." Then another text that changed the texture of everything. "Pull the server access logs for the last 30 nights, she said, "and the VPN auths." The words came across terse and precise. I could almost see the lines on her face as she worked. "I already pulled them," I typed. "But go ahead, double-check." "There's an odd IP fingerprint," she said. "From a contractor account we spun last quarter. It only connects during that time window. It hits the admin API endpoints, but only reads the dashboards you use. Not good." "Do they have a name?" "Contractor, Marion Data Solutions. But the vendor invoice goes through a shell corporate email. I traced it to a name, someone who used to be in the same high school as him. It's not illegal, it's clean, but it's convenient." I chewed on the word convenient. People use convenient to dress up their sins. Convenient is the place where cowardice meets opportunity. "Okay," I said. "Add that to the timeline. Get me anything Jorge texts you." "I texted Jorge," she said. "He sent the paper ledger photos. He says he remembers a midnight drop-off on the 9th that matched a valet slip you signed. Useful? Maybe." "Very," I said. "One more thing," she typed. "I pulled the cached thumbnails from the iCloud preview on your LAN. There's a deleted selfie thumbnail in a conference room iPad backup. Tiny, but it's there. Not full res, but enough. It's a thumbnail of her and him from a week ago, shoulder to shoulder, not kissing. The iPad had been used for demos, not personal photos. It's weird to find a thumbnail there unless someone uploaded it." "Upload it to the secure folder. Label everything with times and checksums," I told her. No commentary. "Got it," she said. The bubble popped. She didn't write anything else. That was probably best. Planning is a private thing. The fewer people who talk, the fewer people will tell stories about your plans like dreams. At 2 a.m, I drove home like a man who'd been awake too long. The city was a map of dim windows and sleeping cars. I thought about scales, about the way power looks like a giant in a room of smaller men. Inevitable until you notice the giant has feet of clay. In my kitchen, I made a sandwich without looking at the ingredients, the way people make sandwiches in the middle of conspiracies. The house smelled like soap and citrus. Her perfume was a permanent residue in the hallway closet, the kind that doesn't wash away with cleaning. I let the smell remind me of what I'd seen. I lay the photos on the kitchen table and stood looking at them like a detective in a junk shop. The reflection, the grip, the cufflink, the grainy kiss. All of it stacked like poker chips. Then I wrote down a new sentence on the whiteboard. Find neutral witnesses. Collect receipts. Create narrative friction. The work isn't pretty. It is arithmetic and patience. If you want revenge to look like fate, you have to be the one holding the calculator. The next day, the city hummed like an animal that does not forgive easily. People filled subways and took calls and signed documents while their minds moved through their own little disasters. At lunch, I ran into Priya at the Colo loading dock. She recognized me because I'd stood in her line for coffee once and had been charming enough to be noticed. "Hey, Evan," she said. "You need something?" "Just a minute," I said. "Do you remember the courier who usually works the night runs?" "Yeah," she said. "Daniel, small guy, fast. Why?" "Did he do anything on the 9th? Maybe pick up a server drive or deliver a maintenance box?" Priya thought for a second. "He did deliver a small hard case. Said it was for Harbor Glass. I signed the log because he had an ID badge. Pretty standard." "Do you still keep the log?" "Yeah, why?" "Would you mind if I took a look? I just want to verify a delivery time." She smiled like she hadn't had a drama in a while and handed me the log. The courier's signature matched the timestamps Claire had pulled. another tile in the mosaic. "Thanks," I said. "By the way, how's your brother?" She brightened. "Good. He got promoted at the hotel last week." "Tell him congratulations." She nodded. "Will do." I walked away with a log folded into my pocket like contraband and felt the small, shy satisfaction of someone who'd managed to get 3 neutral people to nod at the same time. That night, a different kind of sound echoed in the building, the sound of elevators and the soft click of a door. I sat in the dark and watched our deck of slides reconstruct itself in my mind. I imagined the boardroom, the way the light would find her cheek, and the way she'd fold a sentence to make it lethal. I knew I had to give the board an alternate deck, one that was surgical, clean, numbers that couldn't be argued with, a timeline that would force a choice. I had to make them choose between a narrative that rewarded domination and one that demanded accountability. I started building the counterdeck. 2 columns, facts and witnesses. Each fact had provenance. Each witness had motive listed as neutral. I wrote it all in clinical handwriting, no venom, no adjectives, nothing that could be called a vendetta, just evidence. Near midnight, I got a text from Claire, a single line. "Join me at Harbor Glass tonight, 2 birds." I stared at the words and thought about other things that promised 2 birds and delivered disaster. Birds get hurt. People pretend to be birds. I drove there with the counterdeck printed and in my jacket like a talisman. The city had a smell of rain that had not yet fallen. Harbor Glass was a lighthouse of glass and LED, cool, impersonal, the kind of building married to its own image. I parked in the shade of a concrete column and watched the valet stand like a man who measures time in parking spots. At 12:58 a.m., the freight elevator at the rear hissed and disgorged the 2 silhouettes. I saw them move like actors in a rehearsed play. He brushed the collar of her coat. She whispered something. He laughed and kissed the side of her head. I moved before they did. I slipped into the shadows and darted into the alley, keeping cover behind a dumpster and a pile of recyclable glass. I kept my breath steady, my steps measured, every gesture silent. They didn't notice me until I made them notice me. There was no cinematic room for confrontation, only a collision with the ordinary. A delivery truck coming down the alley, a spray of hydraulic brakes. The driver shouted a string of curses and reflexes. People looked up. The moment was ordinary and exactly perfect in its ordinariness. They separated as if pulled by an elastic band. He reached for her hand. She pulled away a hair's breadth. The light from the truck caught his cufflink and flashed it sharp as a coin. I lifted my phone and pressed record, not to blackmail, yet, to document. There is power in a time-stamped video. There is different power in a video recorded in the wild, poorly lit, and human. He noticed the phone. For a second, my body registered the exact millimeter of his surprise. He saw me like a man who glimpses a ghost through fog. That flash of recognition was a small victory. It compacted our story into 1 second. He started to move toward me. The alley had little room for theatrics. I remembered how little he weighed in the real world. No bodybuilder, no movie villain. Just a man who'd worn his arrogance like a custom suit and was about to get cold. I stepped back behind a steel column, keeping my hands visible. I had no desire for a fight. I did want to rattle the cage. He rounded the column, his jaw a fixed line. "You," he said. The word had a fact to it. Not a curse, not a question. A recognition. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I lifted my phone with one hand and clicked a photograph of him from behind, one that caught the dent in his watch band and the way his shoulders sloped. It wasn't poetry, it was precision. Then the delivery truck's brakes screamed again as the driver lost his temper and someone shouted a name. A train thundered somewhere distant, as if the city was impatient for us both to finish our small theater. He lunged. Not at me, not with speed, but at air. The momentum of his movement knocked his shoulder into the dumpster lid. Aluminum clattered. Someone laughed. A long, surprised bark. From the truck. The couple scrambled back into composure, he smoothing a crease in his jacket as if he hadn't just been caught with a hand on a dumpster. He looked at me like someone who couldn't quite decide if he should be shamed or angry. I couldn't wait for either emotion to clarify. "Take a good look," I said. My voice was low. "You don't get to rewrite other people's work and then play God in our lives." He smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "You're making this personal. You should let this go." "Let it go," I said, "is something you say when you're trying not to lose something you weren't the architect of." He tried to move past me and got stuck in the narrowness. He pulled a cigarette out and held it to his lips in an attitude, one of those slow-tiered performative things people do in movies. He wasn't a movie. He was a man who'd built a life on the assumption that his image could cover his tracks. I stepped forward and inoculated him with calm. "Don't make it worse for yourself," I said. He moved past me with a clipped sound, a half-sob buried under civility. The alley swallowed them both, and their footprints. The matte coupe peeled out into the street, and the lights washed the glass into mirror. I remained crouched for a long time after they left. My hands were steady, but my chest was tight. It wasn't fear. It was the focus before a long job. Claire texted, "Good. Send anything else you get." I attached the video and a photo. She replied, "Sent a secure folder. I told Jorge we'll need his ledger copies at the board meeting." Board meeting. The word had a sound like a gavel. If you can influence the board, you can influence the city's understanding. If the city believes in your story, your enemies drown in the consequences. I drove home slowly with the knowledge that I was no longer the only person who could explain the temperature of our marriage. The work had begun to hum like a cooling rack. That night I slept like someone at the helm of a ship on a course of their own choosing, steady and alert. I woke with a plan already spun in my head. Clocks don't sleep. They keep time even when you do something awful and finally right. Morning sunlight cut through the blinds like accusation. I'd fallen asleep at my desk again, coffee gone cold, a half-written note on my pad. Narrative at Twarge, leverage. At 9 sharp, the CFO, Olivia, knocked on my door. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. "You've got a reputation problem," she said. "Do tell." She dropped a folder on my desk. "Word spreading that you're unstable, that you walked out of the board dinner because you're burnt out. Investors are starting to call, asking if we're planning a leadership change." I looked at her, quiet. And where would they get that idea? "Someone's feeding the story through the lovers' firm," she said. "They're whispering about technical mismanagement and emotional volatility. Nothing on paper yet, but people are testing the narrative." I nodded. "Perfect. They're making their own rope." She folded her arms. "I don't want to be in the middle of a domestic Cold War." "You already are," I said. "Question is whether you want to be on the winning side." Olivia sighed. "Show me something real. If I'm going to stand up for you, I need evidence that won't get us sued." I turned the laptop toward her. Badges, valet receipts, calendar overlaps. "These are facts. No blackmail, just logistics." She studied the screen. "Clean chain of custody?" "Check the folder headers," I said. "Everything's time-stamped and verified. No one's phone was hacked, no privacy violated. It's all corporate data." Olivia closed the laptop. "This could burn everything down." "Only what deserves to burn." She left with the folder. By afternoon, the rumor circuit was buzzing louder. The lovers' firm hosted a fireside chat downtown, a PR move thinly disguised as a victory lap. The email invite said the talk would feature innovative leadership perspectives from our co-founder. Her photo was the banner image. My wife, immaculate in grayscale. I went. The event space was all reclaimed wood and startup chic, filled with people who said synergy without irony. I stood in the back wearing a neutral expression and a hoodie that made me invisible. She spoke about resilience in scaling. Every phrase was a ghost of my old presentations, polished and passed off as her own. "We had to rescue operations from chaos," she said. "There was so much technical debt, so many internal inefficiencies." The audience nodded, enraptured. Rescue operations. I'd written that phrase in a memo 18 months ago, the night before we hired her lover's firm as a consultant. My phone buzzed. "Claire. Check the metadata on the deck she's presenting." I opened the link Olivia had sent earlier. The deck's properties listed its last editor, his analyst, and buried in the slide notes was a private screenshot I'd recorded on Loom 6 months ago, exclusive to my workspace. They'd stolen internal assets to rewrite our story. I laughed under my breath. People turned. I pretended to cough. After the talk, I waited near the parking lot. The lover came out first, grinning at someone's compliment. He saw me before I moved. "Did you enjoy the show?" he asked. "It was educational," I said. "I didn't know plagiarism could trend." He smirked. "You should have written better slides." "Maybe I should write better friends." He started toward his coupe, still smiling. I leaned close, too close, pretending to rest my hand on the car's doorframe. My key scraped along the chrome below the handle, a thin whisper of metal. He stiffened. "Careful," he said. "Accident," I said. "Occupational hazard of burdens." I turned and walked away before he could answer. The small silver line glinted under the streetlight like punctuation. Back at the mill, Claire was waiting in my office, scrolling through her phone. "You've officially spooked them," she said. "Their PR director just started following the gossip Substack that posted your reflection photo." "Good. Fear spreads faster than truth. She looked up. You're enjoying this. Wouldn't you? She shrugged. Depends how far you're planning to go. Far enough that they can't walk back. She studied me for a moment. Just remember, wars like this don't end clean. They don't have to, I said. At midnight, I got an anonymous text. Meet tomorrow, Switchyard, 8 p.m. Come alone. The number was blocked, but the phrasing, his. The lover loved drama. I sent no reply. Instead, I typed a note to myself. Make fear physical. I didn't need to touch him. I just needed him to feel the outline of his collapse before it happened. Next evening, the Switchyard parking structure glowed under sodium lamps, a concrete hive humming with echoes. I waited by the exit ramp, listening to the rhythm of tires on wet pavement. His coupe appeared right on time, headlights cutting through the mist. He pulled up and rolled down the window. Get in, he said. I stayed where I was. You wanted to talk? Talk. You think you can scare me with rumors and screenshots? I don't think, I said. I plan. He moved closer. The concrete magnified our footsteps into hollow drumbeats. You're finished, he said. She's already rewriting the cap table. The investors trust her, not the twitchy tech guy hiding in server rooms. Funny, I said. They'll love what's coming Friday. His expression flickered. What happens Friday? Emergency board session, I said softly. Agenda? Leadership integrity review. He blinked, calculating whether I was bluffing. I smiled. You should come. I'll save you a seat next to the exit. He laughed once, sharp and false. You don't have the guts. I stepped forward until we were nearly chest to chest. Guts are messy. I prefer precision. He moved to shoulder past me. I didn't stop him, just turned as he passed, my elbow brushing his jacket enough to leave a faint smear of dust. He spun back, angry, just in time for the parking sensor behind him to beep. A car pulled in fast. He jumped aside, curse half formed. Public. Witnesses. Perfect. I raised my voice. Careful there. You almost tripped on your own arrogance. Two strangers glanced over. The lover's face flushed dark red. I could see it hit him, the realization that his composure was leaking. He swung his door open too hard, metal hitting the concrete pillar with a metallic thud. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. That's going to leave a mark. He froze, suddenly aware the whole structure had cameras. I walked away before he could answer. The Gossip Substack posted an update the next morning. Which waterfront power duo just had a lover's quarrel in a parking garage? The article mentioned a matte black coupe and a heated exchange. No names, just context. The comments section did the rest. By noon, Olivia sent me a screenshot of an investor thread. Is the leadership situation stable? Hearing rumors of internal conflict. I wrote back, working on stabilizing. The truth, for once. It was starting to work. But momentum is a dangerous thing. Once you start pushing, you have to know where the slope ends. Friday was coming, and I planned to make it unforgettable. The switchyard looked different in daylight. Concrete ribs, oil stains, and the smell of exhaust baked into everything. A place built for anonymity, the kind of place people forget after driving through. By 7:30 p.m., the city lights bled into a cold drizzle. I parked 2 floors up from where we'd argued the night before. My heart rate was steady, no music, just the steady hum of rain on the windshield. I wasn't here for a fight. I was here for control. Claire had called earlier, her voice low and quick. The board's meeting was bumped up to Friday morning, 9 a.m. They're inviting external counsel. Good, I'd said. Then tonight is the preamble. She didn't ask for details. She knew better now. I waited in the car until the rain slowed to mist. Then I got out, jacket zipped, hood up. The coupe was already parked in its usual spot, gleaming under the fluorescent light like a coiled animal. He'd always been predictable. People who think they own the world usually are. I placed a sealed envelope on his windshield. Inside, printed badge logs, timestamp correlations, valet receipts. Nothing criminal, but damning when read by paranoid eyes. On the top page, I'd written 3 words in black ink. Check your watch. Then I stepped back, leaned against a column, and waited. At 8:05 he appeared, umbrella swinging, jacket crisp. He moved with the exaggerated calm of someone rehearsing confidence. When he saw the envelope, he froze. He tore the envelope open, scanning the papers. His breathing changed. The umbrella clattered to the ground. "You sick bastard," he said. "I prefer thorough." He took a step toward me. "You think this scares me?" "No," I said. "I think it reminds you that you're not invisible." He lunged, not to hit, but to grab the papers. They scattered like startled birds, fluttering across the wet concrete. We both crouched at the same time. For a second, our reflections stared back from a puddle. Two men who hated themselves in different fonts. Then I straightened, slow and deliberate, and backhanded him once. Not hard. Enough to make sound. Enough to make him step back, clutching his face more from shock than pain. The echo cracked through the structure. Two passers-by near the ramp turned. Cameras caught movement. Perfect. He hissed, "You'll regret that." I leaned in close. "Maybe, but you'll relive it." Then I walked away, leaving him standing amid scattered papers and a trembling reflection. The next morning, the Substack headline hit before my alarm. Anonymous CEO clash caught on camera. What happened at Switchyard Level 3? A grainy still frame, two figures under flickering light. The comments exploded. Half the city had theories. At 8:10 a.m., Olivia stormed into my office. "Tell me you didn't actually hit him." "Define hit," I said. She glared. "Evan, if this turns into HR hell, we're done." "It won't," I said. "He won't report it." "How can you be sure?" "Because his face would have to go public to do it." She stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled. "You're playing a dangerous game." "That's the point," I said. By noon, the gossip had spread into the investor circles. The lover's PR rep issued a bland statement about a misunderstanding between professionals. That was confirmation enough for everyone else. Claire appeared at my door holding her phone. "You broke the internet." "Did I?" "Harbor Glass's internal Slack is melting down. Half their analysts think he's being forced out." "Perfect," I said. "Let the panic do the work." She hesitated. "You're sure you're okay? You look wired." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired of being polite." That night, I sat alone in my apartment. The city outside buzzed like a living circuit. I opened my laptop and reviewed the board packet one last time. Proof, motive, timeline. Everything lined up like a confession delivered in data. Still, something gnawed at me. The lover was rattled, but not done. He'd come back swinging. People like him always did. Through influence, not fists. At midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think this is over? You just made enemies you can't see." I smiled. Typed back, "See you at 9. Bring your empire." Friday morning. The sky hung low and gray, wind pushing fog through the harbor like smoke. The boardroom smelled of anxiety and overbrewed coffee. Olivia sat at the far end, hands folded tight. Claire stood by the projector, pretending to check cables. My wife entered last. Perfect hair, calm eyes. She didn't look at me, but the faintest twitch in her jaw betrayed the pressure. The lover was already seated near the door, sunglasses folded neatly on the table like armor. "Let's begin," the chair said. I let them talk first, about growth metrics, team morale, upcoming partnerships, all the ceremonial noise. Then Olivia gave me a small nod. I stood, connected my laptop. The first slide appeared on the wall. Internal chronology of operations discrepancies. 10 minutes of silence followed as I walked them through badge logs, calendar overlaps, vendor shell patterns. Facts, nothing emotional. When I finished, I clicked to the final slide, a timeline of unapproved access sessions originating from his contractor's IP. "This is what I found while reviewing our vendor infrastructure," I said. "Nothing criminal, but deeply unethical." The room went still. My wife spoke first. "This is absurd. You're twisting coincidences into accusations." Olivia looked at her calmly. "Then you won't mind verifying these records with your own credentials?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. The lover's phone buzzed. He silenced it without looking up. The chair cleared his throat. "We'll need time to review this. I suggest both parties step back from operations pending clarification." Exactly as I'd planned. When the meeting adjourned, I walked out without a word. The lover followed. "You think you've won?" he said quietly. "I think you finally lost something real," I said. He grabbed my arm hard. "You can't keep this up forever." I smiled. "Watch me." Then I shook him off and walked into the rain. The switchyard had been the rehearsal. The real show had only just begun.